Good afternoon, everybody. Uneducated Economist here. I was just reading the home builder sentiment article coming out of CNBC. I'll leave a link down in the description for you. Home builder sentiment has pretty much turned positive in every aspect except for the buyer's traffic. Now, anything under 40 on this index is considered negative, and above 50 is positive. Now, the current sales conditions came in at 62. Sales expectations came in at 60, so well above that 50 mark. Buyer's traffic is still down at 40. Now, buyer's traffic is the one thing that still has yet to turn positive for the home builders. Once it's turned positive, all three indicators of home builder sentiment will be positive at that point, and it is going that way. Now, something I find very interesting when talking about the home, real estate, any kind of mortgage market or anything like that, it really has a very, it's a very sensitive topic. It triggers a lot of people when I talk about this particular topic. And it's for good reason too, because most people look to buy a house at some point in their life. Like that's something that they might have as far as an ambition in their life, and it makes it very difficult when you see conditions that are existing as they are today, with a very limited inventory and a very difficult ability to make the payments with the interest rates as elevated as they are. And when you see no signs of any kind of price relief coming from the real estate market, or at least not in a significant way, is what I should say, because there is price reliefs in a lot of areas. What you'll end up finding when you start talking about these things is people will start, getting very particular about what their expectations for an outcome will be. And you will see, even in the comment section of this video, how wrong or right or whatever this particular topic is for people. Their opinion of it is very heated in many ways. And it makes a lot of sense when you think about, like, I want to buy a house, or if you have that thought, I want to buy a house, but the conditions right now are so difficult to try and buy a house. It makes it seem like if there was a negative tone to maybe any news that comes from the real estate market or from that sort of like information, then that might be a benefit to me if I don't have a house. This is sort of some of the mindsets that begins to take place. Like you're almost looking for the bad news. And now this is something that we have talked about in the past, is that when you have a belief and an expectation and you find evidence of it, you'll be convinced. And so if you want to be convinced of this information, that there's going to be a housing downturn or the prices are going to crash or something, then you will go and look for the evidence that says that's what's going to take place. And then you take on this belief and you're convinced, and then you may be sitting and waiting to buy a house. Other people might just like jump all in and say, well, this house, whatever, between my wife and I, we can make the payments. It takes everything we got. We're going for it. They jump in, and then they find themselves in a very difficult position. As time goes on, we find that the economy slows down. They may not be able to make the income they once did, and they find themselves going into foreclosure, right? Now, there is caution to take when you're facing, this particular type of decision. When it comes to the future, you almost cannot help yourself but to have an expectation of it. But here's the thing, when you have this expectation, you will find that it becomes very difficult to then become, how do I say it, to find a decent outcome from your expectations. Like, if it doesn't work out that way, you find yourself very disappointed or very frustrated, or, you're ever waiting for this expectations, and so therefore you're sitting in a position in which that you never do anything. This takes place, and a lot of people are faced with this consequence from doing this. Now, my own experience with getting a house. Now, I wanted to buy a house. I had been saving up to buy a house. I had been thinking about buying a house. When we talked about buying houses, we described what we wanted to see as far as features for our house. Like, we were in discussion of this the entire time. And I was trying to position ourselves to buy a house. But all of a sudden, it was pushed upon us, right? It was like, hey, the place you're renting, it's coming up for sale. You got to move. right? Well, if you can't find a place to live, what happens, right? You got to get out. You got to find a place to go. And there was no places to rent at the time. And people remember me from the channel here. I was talking all about all kinds of the feelings and emotions and everything that I was going through when it came to buying this house. It was very stressful for me. I did not want to do it because I thought the price was too elevated. I figured the interest rates were going to rise and we were going to see a crashing. I had all this, crashing housing market. I had all these expectations going on what I thought the housing market was going to do. I kind of gave up on the idea of actually owning a house. I let that go. You see, like I had all these other expectations going on. I had issues with that, right? In all kinds of ways. But the actual owning of a house, like I had let that idea go. Like I didn't care at this point. I just wanted a place to live. I would have taken an apartment. I would have taken a house to rent. I would have taken a house to buy if I could, if it makes it. I had to go for it. I didn't know exactly what it was going to take to get, to purchase this house. It took everything I had, like literally everything. Like I was left with $300 in my savings account by the time I came up with the down payment for the house, because I had to come up with 10% because of foreclosure that had existed in my past that was 4 or 5 months away from falling off my record, right? It was like if it was just like literally like 3 or 4 months difference, I can't remember. It was not very long. Had this experience of trying to buy this house had occurred 5 months later or 4 months later, I wouldn't have had this foreclosure on my record. Of course, the interest rates by that point were really shooting up because I got my mortgage at 3.25. Again, I had given up on the idea of buying a house. I had to go for it, but if I could have gotten out of it, I would have. Right? And that's the point of what I'm getting at, is that I had let go of the idea of actually owning a home. I didn't really care. And I was being pushed and I wanted to give up. Like I was like, man, I cannot come up with the down payment. And I came up with the down payment. Then I had to come up with all these other things to deal with the fact that I had this foreclosure in my past and to be able to approve for this loan. It was just everything. And I was just like, man, I don't even care about this house anymore. Right? And then I got it. I couldn't believe it. Like I had literally like thought for sure there's no way this house is coming. Like I didn't even care if I got it at this point. And that was the whole point of what I'm trying to get at, is that when you let go of the outcome, the universe starts taking care of business. And if you trust the universe enough, I did. I was just like, fine. It was just like, what's the next thing you need? Oh, something else I can't come up with? Let's see. Okay, so I came up with it. Wow. Right? I dug in literally, guys, you should have seen it when I was trying. Here's the other thing. This is why the universe was taking care of business. When I bought the house, or when I first looked at the house, I noticed there was an issue with the roof, right? And I was like, no, this isn't right here. This isn't appropriate. Not appropriate installation. And at first it was just kind of like just shrugged off. But by the time I was going to buy this house, I didn't care if I got this house and I was bitching about the roof, right? I mean, I was just pitching a fit about it because I didn't care. It was just like, I'm going to give up on this house if you do not give me something on this roof, right? And it was a good thing they did, because my mortgage lender was able to use that whatever it is that they were giving me for this roof. It was probably something I was going to pay for anyway. But anyway, he ended up using that as part of the ability for me to use as a part of the down payment on the house or something. I can't remember exactly how he used it, but he was like, man, good thing you did that, because if you hadn't, we wouldn't have been able to get this loan. So something I had done before I even even really started the process of getting the loan, I had complained about, was one of the things that actually provided me with the ability to actually get the loan. You see how the universe was taking care of business? I didn't even realize it. Like at that point, I didn't care. I was just like, I was done with it all, right? And I'm like, well, obviously I can't get the house then. And the way he's like, wait a minute, no, I can use that money right there, that you had, whatever, from that roof. So anyway, guess what? That's what I guess I'm getting at when it comes to looking at this housing market, is like to let it go, right? Let it go and just keep an eye out. If you're in search of a house, let it go. Let go of the idea of owning a home. And I mean, it's just like, I know it sounds strange, and people are like, man, I can't. It's like everything in me, it's buried deep. But if you do, you'd be surprised on what comes up. See, it's a lot of the energy that is being admitted from us, right? Because when you it's a lot of times when we talk about it, like if you have a negative energy within you, you're going to draw within negative things, right? You'll attract negative people, negative conversations. You will, your thoughts will be headed in a negative way, right? But if you let go of outcome, if you let go of everything out there, you'd be surprised on what it is that can flow back to you, right? Because you're not emitting, you're not pushing out this negative energy out there, right? So a lot of it is like, if you think about like anything that is, like, a good example that was given to me one time was the energy of a dog. Like, if you chase a dog, what happens? The dog runs. If you run from the dog chases you, right? But what if the dog is sitting over there and you're coaxing the dog and the dog doesn't want to come, and you keep like trying to get the dog to play with you, and the dog's just like, no, wait a minute. This energy that you're putting, like, I'm trying to catch the dog is going to be like, I don't want, no, get away from me, right? And so this ends up happening in just about every aspect of life, and including, the purchase of a home or an investment or anything else out there. When you have this expectation, this outcome that are must have in your life, or else all the world falls apart, you will find that you end up looking at the world in a very narrow view, and you end up missing out on opportunities that the universe is trying to provide for you. I suffer this myself in a lot of ways. I try to recognize when it happens, I mean, it was one of the reasons why this YouTube channel even did so well, is because I was just like, hey, when you go out there and start making videos, especially about the economy, coming from a position that you are doing it from, you are going to have people who are going to make fun of you. There is no doubt about it, right? They are going to be making fun of the videos, whatever it is that you're talking about, every bit about it. And you're going to have to just let that go and not stress it, right? And at times it kind of, I find myself triggered by some comments or something like that. And again, I have to recognize that for myself. But realizing that because I had let go of what it was that people were going to think of the channel and just put out the videos that I think that people would enjoy, I realized then that it doesn't matter, that what people say out there, right? It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. Right? It doesn't matter if you are being authentic, if you are being real, if you are trying to be useful and informative, the universe is going to provide you for that. And man, did it ever for me, When lumber was taken off, it was awesome. My channel was in the perfect position. I was in the perfect position. Everything was just like, it lined up perfectly for the universe to say, here you go, man. Here's everything that you needed for the ability to put your family in a house. Isn't that pretty cool? It's all because you had let go of the channel, the outcome, the house, everything. And the universe I had no idea it was going to do it, right? No clue. There it is. Uneducated Economist, you let me know.